October 1940, Willow Run, Michigan. The land is flat. Corn stubble pokes through early snow. A surveyor drives a wooden stake into frozen ground. Behind him, a team from Ford Motor Company unrolls blueprints that stretch across the hood of a truck. The plans show a single building, one continuous structure. It will be 3,500 feet long, more than half a mile under one roof. The largest room ever built. Right now, it's a beet farm. In 18 months, it will produce a B-24 Liberator heavy bomber every 63 minutes. The call came in May 1940. France was collapsing. Britain stood alone. President Roosevelt went on the radio and said America must become the great arsenal of democracy. He asked for 50,000 aircraft a year. 50,000. In 1939, American factories built less than 3,000 military planes total. The automotive industry listened. They knew mass production. They knew assembly lines. But they'd never built a bomber. Henry Ford said yes first. His engineers visited the Consolidated Aircraft plant in San Diego, where B-24s were being hand-assembled, one at a time, by skilled craftsmen. It took 8,000 man-hours per plane. Ford's production chief, Charles Sorensen, watched for 3 days. Then he sketched something on a hotel notepad, a moving assembly line, like the Model T, but for a 4-engine heavy bomber with a 100-foot wingspan. Construction began in April 1941, 24 hours a day, 70,000 tons of steel, 300,000 cubic yards of concrete. The building was shaped like an L aligned with the prevailing wind, so bombers could take off straight from the factory floor onto a mile-long runway. Albert Kahn, the architect, called it the most complex industrial structure ever designed. No internal columns. The roof spanned from wall to wall, supported by steel trusses that weighed 50 tons each. When they poured the foundation, the concrete mixers never stopped. If they had, the seams would have weakened. By March 1942, the first workers arrived. Farm boys from Indiana, laid-off miners from Kentucky, women who'd never held a rivet gun. 70% of the workforce had never worked in a factory before. Ford trained them fast. A toolmaker got 3 weeks of instruction. A riveter got 6 days. They worked in shifts around the clock. 42,000 people at peak production. The factory had its own fire department, police force, and hospital. The B-24 came down the line in pieces. Wings built in one section, fuselage in another, tail assemblies, engine mounts. Everything converged at precise intervals. Overhead cranes moved major components. Sub-assemblies rolled on dollies. Workers had 18 minutes per station to complete their task before the line moved forward. 18 minutes to install a hydraulic system. 18 minutes to wire a bomb bay. The bomber advanced 100 feet every hour. The noise was unbelievable. Rivet guns hammered in overlapping bursts. Metal screeched against metal. Compressed air hissed from pneumatic lines. Radial engines test-fired at full throttle on the final assembly stands, their propellers spinning inside protective cages. The smell was cutting oil, aviation fuel, and fresh paint. In summer, the temperature inside reached 110 degrees. In winter, they couldn't heat the building. It was too big. Workers wore coats at their stations. Willow Run wasn't alone. Across the country, factories transformed overnight. Chrysler retooled its Dodge Chicago plant to build Wright Cyclone engines for B-29 superfortresses. General Motors converted 5 assembly plants to produce Grumman TBF Avengers and Pratt and Whitney engines. In Kansas, Boeing opened a massive facility in Wichita dedicated to B-29 production. North American Aviation built a sprawling complex in Kansas City for B-25 Mitchells. Each plant followed the same logic: break the aircraft into sub-assemblies, standardize every part, move the work to the worker, never let the line stop. The numbers climbed. In 1941, American factories produced 19,000 military aircraft. In 1942, 47,000. In 1943, 85,000. In 1944, 96,000. Peak production: 1 aircraft every 5 minutes, somewhere in America, 24 hours a day. The Japanese and Germans couldn't comprehend the scale. Luftwaffe intelligence officers captured Allied airmen and asked where all the planes came from. The answers didn't make sense. Single factories producing more aircraft per month than Germany's entire aviation industry. At Willow Run, they hit their stride in 1944. A B-24 rolled off the line every 59 minutes. Not every 63. They'd improved. The bomber emerged fully assembled. 4 Pratt and Whitney R-1830 engines installed. 10 Browning M2 machine guns mounted. Norden bomb sight calibrated. Fuel tanks topped off. A test pilot climbed in, started all 4 engines, and taxied onto the runway. 30 minutes later, the plane was airborne, heading for modification centers where it would receive final combat equipment. By the time it landed, another B-24 was rolling out behind it. The factories changed America. They pulled women into manufacturing jobs at unprecedented rates. Rosie the Riveter wasn't a slogan. She was real. Her name was Rose Will Monroe. She worked at Willow Run, bucking rivets on bomber fuselages during the night shift. A film crew saw her working and put her in a promotional short. The image became iconic. By 1943, women made up 36% of the American workforce. At some aircraft plants, they were the majority. The supply chain was staggering. A single B-24 required 125,000 individual parts from 1,500 subcontractors in 32 states. Aluminum came from Alcoa smelters in Tennessee and Washington, powered by massive hydroelectric dams built specifically to feed wartime production. Rubber for tires and seals came from synthetic plants because Japan had seized 90% of the world's natural rubber supply. Steel came from mills running 3 shifts, 7 days a week. Everything flowed to assembly plants on trains that never stopped rolling. Germany tried to match it. They couldn't. In 1944, under Albert Speer's direction, German factories produced just under 40,000 aircraft despite total wartime mobilization. America produced 96,000 that same year, while also building 15 million rifles, 41 billion rounds of ammunition, 300,000 aircraft engines, 2 million trucks, and 87,000 tanks. The Battle of the Atlantic was won partly because American shipyards launched cargo ships faster than U-boats could sink them. Henry Kaiser's Richmond shipyards reduced Liberty ship construction time from 240 days to 42 days. In November 1942, they assembled 1 Liberty ship, the SS Robert E. Peary, in 4 days and 15 hours as a publicity demonstration. It was seaworthy. The war ended at Willow Run on June 28, 1945. The last B-24 Liberator, number 8685 from that plant alone, rolled off the line. Workers painted their names on it. Then they went home. The building fell silent for the first time in 4 years. Within months, Ford sold the facility. It eventually became a General Motors plant. Then it was demolished. But the lesson remained. When American industrial capacity focused on a single goal, the output was overwhelming. Not because of miracles, because of planning, standardization, mass production, and an unrelenting work pace maintained by hundreds of thousands of ordinary people who simply refused to slow down. The assembly line won the war before a single bomb fell. It was decided in Michigan, in Kansas, in California, in the vast factory buildings where the noise never stopped and the line always moved forward.